Hi, I'm Shannon of Leather by Shannon. Welcome to this installment where I show you how I repair a rip or tear in leather clothing. It's low cost, and you may already have everything you need on hand, including your toothpick. So let's get started. I've just found this leather jacket. It's got a tear in the back. It's a very thin leather, uh, a pigskin, I believe. Anyhow, I'm just trying to determine what type of tear it is. This is a snag. In other words, they hooked it onto something and it just tore. It makes an L-shaped tear. So what I'm going to do now is get access to the back of the jacket. I'm going to go in from the hem. That's the closest area that's easy to close up afterwards. And it takes just a few minutes. I just use a sharp knife on this part. Uh, you can use various things. I don't like seam rippers, but it'll get in there too. So now we can see the back side of the tear. I'm going to open it up a little more to see if I can get a bit more space in there because I'm going to want to get an iron in there. So now we're going to take this, lay it out as flat as possible on the back, try to get the edges of the tear into a better alignment so that I can actually put some tape on it. And I'm using my knife here just to tuck in here and there to get the edges aligned as closely as I can. Take your time with this part. Try not to move the jacket. So here, I'm just using cheap tape, the cheapest I can find. That's the stuff that it doesn't have as good sticky edge on it as, say, the name brand type tapes. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually even making it less sticky. I'm adding a little bit of whatever's on the tabletop, like oil, soaps, whatever ends up on that tabletop. I even use a little skin oil on it. And then what I do afterwards, I just take it when I'm happy with it. It's not too sticky. The reason I do this is so that when I put that tape on that leather, on the surface of the leather, it doesn't take the finish off when I go to pull it off. So I'm using small chunks. I took a larger piece of tape and tore it in half so that I can get a small area of the tear. That way I can take and realign the edges again before I put on the next piece of tape. And once I'm happy with that, then I can finish off the tear. And usually I start from the outside ends of the tear and work my way inside. And there goes the last piece of tape. Now you can see that the edges look like they're aligned fairly well. You can still see where the tear is quite easily. That's good. I'm just going to use a couple of weights. I use nice clean ball hitches to hold the material away. And now here I'm using interfacing material. Now this is a knit with a heat sensitive adhesive on the back of it, and I just iron that to the material. In this case here, I'm putting on some double-sided tape just to hold the material more or less flat, because if it wrinkles, then that shows up through the leather sometimes, especially if you iron it down tight. So it only takes a couple of minutes, and I happen to have this double-sided tape anyway, and it just makes it a little easier. And it might assist someone else if they have to do this too. And the trick here is to get the material as flat as possible make it easy to iron. And just, it doesn't have to be a huge piece, but you do want to cover the tear. Make sure that you have the adhesive side down. Okay, nice and flat. I apologize for the camera angle. I know it's at the bottom of the screen, but it does show what I'm doing. Now, in this case here, I'm going to take one of the pieces of tape off. It's quite stable with the other two pieces on, but that's just so that I can get that heat right into that center of that tear and help the heat from the warming up the adhesive on this patch panel is going to help hold it together. And I'm using not too high of a heat. You want to be able to actually touch your hand on the bottom of the iron quickly. You don't want to burn yourself. But you're playing with leather here, and you're playing with man-made materials. So if you have it too hot, it's going to melt. And of course, the leather will shrink too. So don't get it too hot, just enough to get the adhesive to hold. And I'm just going in spots here. I'm just got basically using the edge of the iron and just holding, melting the adhesive in little places. And that's just enough so that I can actually take the tape off without opening up the tear again. And I don't want to melt the adhesive right into the of the tape into the surface of the leather. That will cause problems too. And you can see I pulled it away a little bit, but easy enough to get back into place. A little bit more surface from the iron here. I've got a little bit more surface area to work with. Now that's holding the edges of the repair together. And we'll pull off that last piece of tape. A little bit of alignment with the knife. Now we're going to put some heat on this here. We are going to be pulling off that double-sided tape because I don't want that showing through the repair. So, but we'll make sure that this is the tear itself is fastened down fairly solid before we do that. Try to do this as quickly as possible. All right, now that we've gotten rid of all of this double-sided tape, it's time to finish ironing this down. Well, it's looking pretty good now. Now it's time to bond the edges. This is where you need your toothpick. So I'm using PVA glue, and I've got some toothpicks here. These are the like the cocktail type I got the points on both ends. I just use a business card to put a little bit of glue on so that I can access it easy. Now I moved over to where I have some good lighting. I have a lamp that I can focus right on the repair. It's easy for me to see. And what I do is I just fold the tear so I can expose both edges of the tear. And then I put a light amount of glue. I try to cover the whole tear, but I put a light amount of glue in there. If too much glue, you're going to be cleaning it up. So I'll try to use a little bit of glue and just get it into where it needs to go. And I generally start with from the end of the tear and work in towards the center. And I usually only go about an inch, inch and a half of glue at a time, and then I'll bond. I'll squeeze that out, get the edges together, and when I'm happy with that, then I'll go to the other end of the repair. And I'll work again from the outside end of the tear to the middle. And you take your time here. Yep, I use the toothpick just to help align the edges a bit, tuck in the edges, put a little pressure right where you need to have it. What you're trying to do is get as smooth an edge as possible and get all of the edge glued down. The more time you spend on this part of it, the better your repair is going to be. I use a little bit of water on my finger just to take off whatever excess glue is there, but it also helps with sealing the edges too. It helps mix with that little bit of glue that's in the repair so it actually bonds better. But be gentle with it. So I'm going to approach the repair from a different angle. The PVA glue tends to dry fairly quickly. It has a kind of a rubbery type consistency to it as it's drying, but there is a point where you cannot fold it. It will actually break itself. But once you have everything fastened down and it's had a chance to dry, it's quite strong. And again, a little bit of a cleanup. The PVA glue dries clear, but it will leave a shiny spot on the leather if you don't take off anything that squeezes out. Here I'm using my thumbnail to smooth everything, or my fingernail. It's a nice hard surface, but it's not so hard that you can't keep the pressure on it. You can see it's just about invisible. So the best just to kind of take a break on there, to let it dry, give it a 20 minutes. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to expose the inside of the tear. You can see some of the glue seep through into the reinforcement patch. I'm going to take another piece of this interfacing and iron that over top of what we've got there. And that will make sure that I've got a real good solid reinforcement behind there. Now, I know they sell kits on the internet that you can do the repair on the surface of the leather without going into the leather, without opening it up. I've never really liked those because they require abrading the leather, and then you have to refinish the top of it. Where this here, if anything, it looks like a small scar. Now, some tears, like if they're straight, they'll have uh, little dog legs coming off the sides of the repair. Usually on those, they can be fixed, but usually on those ones, I generally like to just take that piece of material out because it's quite weak, and just replace the material. Now here I'm trying to find another access point to so that I can go into the jacket and repair it where I opened it up to get at the tear. And then when I close it up, I don't want anybody to be able to see this. There's two ways usually with the jacket. You can go through the zipper, or you can go through the sleeve on the in the liner. There's sometimes when you turn the sleeves inside out, you'll see a seam, and it's usually about 4 or 5 inches long in the liner where they've actually stitched it from the outside. You can open that up and you can get at the inside of the liner quite easily. And on this particular jacket, it was easier just to go through where the zipper is, and after I get the liner stitched into place here at the hem, I'll just pull that back out again and close it up at the zipper again, and it'll look just like it did before. Now, if you don't have a sewing machine, you can do the exact same thing that I just did there. You're just doing it with a needle and thread. I wouldn't recommend going through the zipper in that case. In that case, I would go through the sleeve. But once you have the edges aligned, you can use that double-sided tape too, just to align all your pieces and then do a quick stitch. It doesn't take much to hold the hem in place. Just a few stitches along the hem, and then close up the sleeve the way you found it, and you're done. It doesn't take long to hand stitch something. Oh. I'm just making sure that I have the the thread matching up with the original seam underneath the zipper, because I can't see it. I have to go slow and work it together as I can. Okay, we're getting close to the end of the job now. You can see there's a little bit of what looks like a scar, a little bit of color showing through the tear. So I've got some leather dye, black. You don't really have to do this step, but I've got everything here to do that. So I'll show you how I do it. I just use a toothpick and I just put the dye exactly where I want it. Try not to draw on the leather or wipe it on. It tends to show up more, but no matter what you do, after you put a little bit of dye on, put a little bit of leather conditioner on too. And always watch that black dye. I've ruined more tabletops with black dye than anything else. It looks like I've got a little too much dye in those on those edges, but it'll dry up fairly clear. And then once I put a little conditioner on it, now, I don't want to show you the brand name of the conditioner, but any good conditioner will do this. Wipe on, wipe off. And there you go. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. You can see it looks pretty good. My customer is quite happy with it. Anyway, hopefully I'll get a chance to make another one related to this one. I'm thinking probably one that's along the seam. Thank you.